Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan battle video. In this video we're going to take a look at how the Corroded Body Mind category performs in Red Zone, obviously as part of the build of the week. Now one thing I will say, the Corroded Body Mind team is actually pretty durable. It's got some pretty strong durable characters, it's got some good healing. It's got some really good sustain, but its damage can be very lacking, especially if you don't have dupes in the units, and especially if you don't get a bit of RNG with the orbs. That's really the only big issue that the team has. You're going to see probably one of the longest Omega Shenron runs in your entire life. And the vast reason for this is mainly just due to the fact that the team takes time to get going. It takes time to build up some of these units, and not only that, but it takes time for them to do damage, especially at low dupes. They don't have things like critting, they don't have things like additional attacks, so the team can take time. And this is just something that is quite evident when you use the team, especially at a low dupe threshold. Using it when everyone's rainbow, or if you have a dupe or two in every unit, things start to look a lot better. But a lot of them don't have very strong base offensive abilities. A lot of them don't have baked in crits, a lot of them don't have baked in anything. So they tend to actually just be very much more aligned with being a defensive based unit than anything else. But obviously, we're taking a look at the team. So how this team differs a little bit to the SPR or ESPR kind of build that you're going for. The Metal Cooler team is generally a bit kind of better in situation. Like you've got a couple strong Metal Cooler based units that I've switched in for Red Zone, and I think, not that you need them, but I'm gonna say that they're definitely preferable if you want to look at like how to run the team for the specific event, because the cooler units do elevate the team quite a lot. They give it that extra bit of oomph, that extra bit of health, that especially the health recovery. Like the team does very well in not taking a lot of damage or not having a lot of one-hit kill kind of situations, but it does struggle with regaining that health back, except for when you have the metal coolers. When you have the metal coolers, you can gain that health back all the time. So some pretty cool stuff there. In terms of the team, how I've structured it, I've gone for the Otherworld and Collapsed Janemba, the Extreme Janemba. He's by far and away the best lead right now, being 170% across the board. A great alternative is the Physical LR Janemba, but we'll talk about him because there's kind of a little twist you can do on this team to just give yourself a little bit of an extra boost. But we'll just kind of leave this as is for now. So Tech Janemba, obviously great. His transformation, very questionable. I think a lot of people find it super questionable that they didn't keep the guard. And I would agree. I think if they kept the guard mechanic, then Janemba would have been great. Or if they just given him like 70% evasion instead of 50% evasion, I think Super Janemba, his transformation, would have been really good. With that being said though, Janemba, the base form one, is in a very good condition. He has attack and defense of 120%, he guards all attacks, he gives extreme class allies 2 key attack and defense of 30% with 4 more type key spheres, and reduces damage by 30% with 2 or more rainbow key spheres. So the big thing with this guy, obviously, is the fact that, to cut a long story short, you really are RNG dependent if you want to see the best out of him. God takes him a long way, but he will start to struggle later on in the event, especially if he's not got a lot of dupes or isn't max link level, things like that. So basically, having him with his rainbow mechanic is very important if you want him to tank well going into the latter parts of the event. Now, obviously, Janemba aside, very good unit. The support mechanic is also a bit RNG dependent, and that also kind of affects the team a little bit, which is a bit of a shame, because the inconsistency of the support does affect how well the rest of the team operates. Then the kind of pseudo lead in the form of 150% Corroded Body and Mind or Movie Bosses lead is obviously Physical Janemba. Just a great unit. He guards all attacks within the same turn as the first or second attacker, which is great. He gets key and attack and defense with each attack performed as a second or third attacker, and he has a high chance of nullifying Ki Blast supers. This mechanic is actually incredibly powerful in this Omega Shenron stage. So this mechanic is especially powerful here because Shenron fires a lot of Ki-based supers. I think from the second and the third phase, all of his attacks are Ki-based supers. So it's pretty cool that you can nullify all of that grotesque damage that he can output, which is obviously quite helpful. The big concern is early on you do want to kind of push Janemba as much as possible into the second slot so that you can get him to build up those stacks. You really want him to be fully built up by the time you get to the strength phase or by the time you get to the physical phase, because it just does help out a lot, especially the Ki. The Ki is probably more important almost than the attack and defense. Like, the attack and defense is nice, but having the Ki helps out a lot, because like I mentioned, Ki issues are probably the biggest problem with this team in general. So having that extra 6 Ki does help out Janemba like a lot and makes him way more functional than before. We're using him as a friend lead for this run, but the trick that you'll see later on when I show off another run is to use a strength cooler. So that's one thing, is there's a lot of crossover synergy with Terrifying Conquerors and movie bosses. So dropping a strength cooler as a friend lead helps you out a lot, and the reason being, having strength cooler solves the one problem this team has, and that problem is damage. Strength cooler brings an enormous amount of damage, and this solves the issue that this team faces. The fact that its damage is very much locked behind dupes and is still very once off. If you look at any of these units, a lot of them are not what I would classify as the highest damage dealers in the game. Janemba, even fully built up, Rainbow, you know, we're looking at maybe 4 or 5 million, a crit if you're lucky. Looking at physical metal cooler, Rainbow physical metal cooler can hit quite hard, especially alongside the int one. You're looking at probably 8 or 9 million, but very much a one attack and done kind of unit. So he'll fire one attack, you're gonna hope that kind of crits. Maybe you've got a bit of additional in the hidden potential system, but yeah, generally speaking, a lot of these units are kind of one and done, crit based builds. So if you don't get the crit, you don't tend to have a good time. The highest potential damage unit is actually the Captain Ginyu, and we'll talk about him now because he's an interesting selection on this team, and I think he's he's a good unit, but this shows how he performs, or how different his performance is when he's not with a Ginyu Force unit. So, firstly, just to pre-emphasis, Captain Ginyu is not a bad unit in any way, shape or form. Captain Ginyu is still an incredibly good unit with or without Ginyu Force members, but it helps him a lot to have Ginyu Force members, especially in the damage department. Like, he'll still stack defense, he's still got his heal, he's still got his transformation, all of these things are still super helpful, but he doesn't share some of the crucial links with a lot of these units. And links do help out the Ginyu Force a lot, especially links like Frieza's Army, Gentleman, Signature Pose. These kind of links are very strong and are honestly almost pivotal to seeing the really grotesque starting turn 1 Ginyu. Other than that, he's still very good. He just doesn't stack as fast, but he's still a great option. I don't have any disrespect for Ginyu. I think he's a great unit, and he is good in these long form events. I think with a dupe, you probably see a much better version of Ginyu than I would, but that is what it is. So yeah, then we have obviously the physical Alar Metal Cooler. Recovers 10% HP, huge health recovery. Him and the Int Cooler and the AGL Cooler provide so much health recovery for this team. And that's one of the things, this team is very durable. You have 3 units with Guard, you've got 3 very strong defensive units. Beyond that, you've got physical Metal Cooler with his revive and his heal, you've got AGL Metal Cooler with his healing and his very high level of defense. So in general, you have a pretty strong team. You have a heal from Captain Ginyu, you have the stacking from Captain Ginyu. You're not in a bad way It's just that the team takes its time. It has to marinate. You gotta let it cook. You gotta let it stew on the pot a little bit. You know, that's the only thing. This team's not gonna burst through an event. But if you manage it well and you take your time, it won't have that many problems, honestly speaking. It actually doesn't. They don't really have huge issues as a team. They're very durable, very solid, very strong, great at recovering health. Like you're gonna see, we recover health all the time. I mean, you'll watch like units come in, we'll be at half health, and then take attacks, and all of a sudden we're low on health, and then bam, next turn we're at like 2/3 health, we're at 80% health. Very, very simple stuff. I think for me, like when I look at how the team performs, when I look at the team, its durability and its ability to recover is huge, and I think that's not something to take lightly. But that's usually why you find a lot of the Corroded Body of Mind units are tanks or defensive options in other teams, but when they all come together, they can be a little bit too defense orientated, and when you're too defense orientated, it actually makes it a bit difficult to clear events, because it takes you so long to clear events that the units on your team that aren't defensive orientated are more than likely to take attacks or to take damage. And that's where the whole argument of defense versus offense kind of comes in. Generally, your team the best teams always have a good balance of both. Like it's generally one of those things. You can always go ultra defensive. That's definitely a thing. But the real question is why? Like why? When you need a little bit of offense, this team performed so much better with Strength Cooler as a friend lead, purely because he provided the missing offense. And he's very good defensively. He's not exceptional defensively, but he's very good defensively. And so all of a sudden, with that little bit of added offense, well, I say a little bit, that huge amount of added offense from Strength Cooler, even though we replaced one of our stronger defensive options, which was a Rainbow Friend Physical Janemba, the team actually performs way smoother. Way smoother. So yeah, it is just one of those things. It's just one of those things where like all of these units are great, but they're just maybe too defense orientated, like as units, and so this kind of leaves them in an awkward situation where you can tank to hell, but you just tend to struggle a little bit with some of the other mechanisms that are at play. But it's okay, it is what it is. So to continue talking about the team, obviously we've got the AGL Metal Cooler and the Int Metal Cooler. I believe those are our final two units. Very good. So AGL Metal Cooler after his easy aim, just very solid. Attack and defense 150%, gains 20% attack and defense with each attack received. Then has an additional key +1 and chance of a crit when there's a superclass enemy, and additional if there's a pure Saiyans enemy. He recovers 10% HP at the end of the turn, which is pretty good. That 10% HP recovery does come in handy. It's pretty clutch, so it does help out overall. And the team tends to be in a pretty good space when that happens. So yeah, very, very solid stuff. Personally, pretty happy with how it all kind of came about. Realistically, not too phased about anything. And then finally we have the Int Metal Cooler, who's solid, recovers 8% HP at the start of turn, raises his attack and defense based on the HP remaining, gives Artificial Life Forms category key of 3 and defense at 30%, and also has a high chance of launching up to 2 additional attacks, each of which has a medium chance of becoming a super attack, and he raises defense on both his 12 and 18 key. You do need a bit of luck with the supers. You're going to need at least 2, like you're going to see here. We get 2 super attacks, and we managed to stay okay. We take a lot of damage, but we managed to stay okay. You're going to want like 3 super attacks. If you can get 3 super attacks, I think then you're sitting in a very good position with him defensively, and he should be fine. But yeah, so obviously here, the big thing with Sin Shenron is that he fires a super attack in the final slot, and so it's always difficult to determine where to place units. I just kind of wanted to use Tech Janemba's transformation and do a bit of a YOLO for fun. But yeah, but generally speaking, the team is good. It's very durable. very much dependent on the RNG with the orbs. Like that is ultimately at the end of the day where you're kind of sitting as like a team. Like a lot of it is RNG dependent, a lot of it's letting the units build up and cook, like Metal Cooler Army. If you get good RNG on them, they'll be fine the whole way through. If you get bad RNG on them, probably gonna wipe very early on. Shinemba, you need the ability to build them up early on. So you want them to come out early, you want to be able to stick them in the first or second slot. Ginyu, you don't want him to be sealed, you want him to fire off super attacks. There's a lot of things that need to happen for them to keep pace. They'll recover from a lot of situations because they're a very strong, very tough team. But they need that time to recover. They need kind of everything to sit in place and things to kind of function the way you want them to function, for it all to look as good as it can. But yeah, in general, I think the team does pretty well. I personally was quite happy with how they did, and I think in general I was, pretty happy with the functionality of the team, and yeah, just in general how everything came together. Would I recommend Corroded Body Mind? No, not really, unless you've got a lot of dupes in the team that can kind of make up for their RNG dependency and a lot of their passives. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it as like a go-to team, but I think a lot of these units are go-to units for Red Zone. That's probably the weirdest saying you've ever heard, but the sum of the parts is not greater than the whole, if that makes sense. So basically, the units themselves are fantastic, especially individually, and I think slotting them in their appropriate teams like movie bosses makes them really, really good, or slotting them into Wicked Bloodlines, or slotting them into Terrifying Conquerors, or putting them on Ginyu Force, and then every single unit here will shine. Every unit here is going to look like the best unit in the world, and that's that. That's just how it is. We didn't get a lot of good luck. Well, we got decent luck. I mean, 2 out of 3 dodges on a 50%, that's pretty good. But yeah, that is basically going to be it for me. So I hope you enjoyed the video. A bit of a longer one, but it was cool to kind of dissect the team and really look at the category as a whole and some of its top tier options. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, and you could leave a like, I would appreciate it. But otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one. So until then, bye.